Happy 4th of July. What made Kemba Walker great? Well, it's just another great American story. You're Locked On UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Little housekeeping for me, the YouTube support, absolutely amazing. I'd love to have all of those subscribers also download the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. It's equally as important for helping the channel and the Locked On UConn audience grow. So if you do me two quick favors, first click that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen, then head over to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button. This way you never miss a moment of Locked On UConn. I can't tell you how much your support means to me. It's everything. If you're tuning in from an audio device, whatever that may be, once the show is over, please take a second to give us a 5-star review. Tell us what you like about it. And if you don't give us a 5-star review, tell me what you don't like about it. Would love to get some constructive criticism. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Kemba Walker. He's so great, we're doing a second show on him. I wish I was doing a daily podcast when Kemba Walker was in Storrs, Connecticut, at the what we consider the basketball capital of the world. He was on a podcast called 7 p.m. in Brooklyn with Carmelo Anthony, and it made me think about how truly American his story is. Only in America can a kid with this stature, not very tall, 6 foot, was pretty raw coming out of high school, even though he was a McDonald's All-American, didn't really fit the profile of what an NBA player looks like in terms of his physical acumen. I said on the podcast yesterday, he didn't win the DNA Olympics, in the genetics award by being 6'8" with, long arms, or 7'3", a freak of nature like a Victor Wembanyama or a Donovan Clingan. And I just found that who he thanked really spoke volumes about who he is as a person and why he was able to make the leap from good player to great player in college and then eventually the pros. Let's just start with that conversation with Carmelo in Merrill. People he thanked tells a story, right? First off, mom and dad. We all saw Kemba's mom and how she was always a presence at games. But I love what he said. If you haven't heard it, this is a quote from Kemba on the show. I just found out we was poor. That's how great of a job my parents did for me. I'll read that again. I just found out we was poor. That's how great of a job my parents did for me. And then he pivots to his coaches. But if anybody has great parents out there, you know that they worked their tails off to give you anything that you needed. Everyone's in different socioeconomic position in their life. But the one thing that we can all relate to is working our butts off for our kids and making sure that they have everything that they need at our own expense, right? Expense of us, getting something extra for ourselves. We sacrifice for our children. So shout out to Kemba Walker's parents for sacrificing for him so that we can, be exposed, talking about his virtues as a player. But I've always felt really good about him as a person. I've met him a couple times in passing. So, it just speaks volumes. But then as he pivots to his coaches, he mentions his junior high school coach, Carl Nickerson, that really kind of saw something from him in the 7th or 8th grade. That's kind of where it all started. So we've all had that coach and mentor that believed in us And that's something that, this guy, Carl Nickerson, really saw something in Kemba earlier than anyone. So that was really fun to listen to as well. And then obviously he talks about Mo Hicks from Rice High School. They ended up being number 1 in the nation. He turned himself into a McDonald's All-American under Mo Hicks at Rice. He credits Mo on why when he came in, he was so ready to play at UConn, taking charges, closeouts, no middle, being special for his teammates. And of course, he talks about the GOAT, Jim Calhoun in UConn. He says that was my dream school and that he's still in a dream and that he can't believe it. Kemba Walker was a special player. All you have to do is go look at his stats in just points per game from his freshman to junior year, where he eventually forego his senior year to go to the pros. He started his freshman year, he averaged just under 9 points. And did get 25 minutes a game. So he wasn't a starter. He was coming off the bench, a very talented UConn team that he played on. But then his sophomore year, where he started and kind of really started to make his ascension to where he ended up in college, was about 15 points, 14 and a half a game. And then he makes that big leap to almost 24 points a game and leads UConn to a national championship, goes on that crazy run. That's what makes him special. And I remember the exact moment where he arrived as a player on the national scene. As a freshman, they made the Final Four. And there are moments in games that shape a player and kind of get you where you need to be going into the rest of your career. Coming off that bench, averaging 25 minutes a game, but the Elite Eight game against Missouri, where he played 25 minutes, just under the starters, right around his average. He finished that game with 23 points on 7 of 9 shooting. Missed his only 3-point shot. He was not a 3-point shooter back then. He was a terrible shooter at that point from a percentage perspective. Although in that game, he was 9 of 10 from the free throw line. So he was attacking the basket. He also had 5 rebounds. He also had 5 assists, and he only turned the ball over twice. Had plenty of moments down the stretch to help that team realize their dream of getting to the Final Four. Obviously didn't go the way most Final Fours go with UConn. We had Jerome Dyson was hurt that year. So, but that is the moment. I remember I was in New Haven, Connecticut at the time. I was living there, and I was watching that game, and then obviously wasn't too happy with the Michigan State game. But this isn't a show about UConn losing. This is a show about Kemba Walker and the things that he was able to do for this college. And the University of Connecticut is forever indebted to him. And I know as fans, we, talk about him in almost like he's a deity, right? He's kind of a god at UConn. We spoke about the run yesterday with Dave Borges. So we're going to talk a little bit with Ryan Gresh coming up after this. There's nothing like catching an MLB game in the summer, and I remember one game where the atmosphere was absolutely electric. It's memories like these that keep me going back to the ballpark. Getting tickets is a breeze with Game Time, an authorized MLB ticket marketplace. The closer to the game, the better the deals. It's like being rewarded for procrastination. I found some amazing last-minute tickets on the app, and I love that you can see the view from my seat before buy. Game Time makes it super easy with all-in pricing and their lowest price guarantee. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Don't miss out. Make every moment count with Game Time. Download it now. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you daily to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're back on Locked On UConn with Ryan Gresh with the Feel Good Lab, my local sponsor of the pod. Love to have Ryan on as much as possible. I'm going to give Ryan some shine here. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Good Morning America had his product on a segment where they were talking about the plant-based pain relief that he provides. So congrats on that, and really happy to have you on the show. I see you're wearing what looks like a Kemba Walker jersey. Oh, very nice. As you can tell, happy 4th of July, but this is all Kemba today on the docket.
That's right.
Yesterday. The GOAT of UConn, in my opinion, deserves a two-day event, show-wise, to bring him in. So tell me a little bit about your kind of recollections of Kemba and some stories you got. I love hearing all this stuff because he's so great to talk about.
Well, we got something in common, kind of to show our fanhood around Kemba, right?
That's right.
So,
that's
Kemba,
right.
For me, I know you named your dog Kemba before me. I want to say my dog is 10 years old now. So a little bit before, but at the time, my parents actually tried to name their dog Kemba, and I had it planned, right? I didn't have a dog yet. And I remember I was just like adamant, like, no way, that's mine. So they ended up naming him Ollie. So
that's still a great name. I love it.
Still a great name. And, I know we've had those ups and downs around KO, but that guy's a national champion. He's probably going to be a head coach in the NBA. He does represent us really well. So I got no hard feelings against Ollie.
Absolutely not. So tell me about that jersey. I'm curious because I have a jersey story myself.
So obviously Kemba is the GOAT in my opinion. I even have another Kemba hand-drawn poster over here. I got Kemba stuff all over the office. This jersey, sewn on. I'm so excited. It's like my Kemba jersey. I'm wearing it all the time. And all of a sudden, a couple years ago, I'm with a buddy who's probably more diehard than you and I about UConn. And he goes, nice blank jersey, not Kemba. I'll see if you can guess who it is. So what are you talking about? I got like so offended and mad, right? He goes, look it up. Sure enough, I look up this style jersey. This was not a Kemba Walker jersey. So who wore this style jersey at UConn, right? It's the new logo sewn on. Can you tell me who this is?
Man, the only 15 I recognize outside of Kemba is Kevin Freeman.
Yeah, love Kevin Freeman, but that's the OG logo, right?
Yeah.
This is the Ferrari.
Okay.
Rodney Purvis.
Oh, gotcha.
And listen, I like Rodney Purvis, no problem there, but I was so disappointed. So I do still rep the jersey. I do pretend like it's Kemba, but I have to come clean. And when I looked it up, I was like, yeah, Kemba never wore this jersey.
That's too funny, man. Yeah, sometimes those little details because I feel like there's so many iconic UConn jerseys and there's the sweatshirts they would wear or the sweatsuits, like the pregame stuff. I always loved that when I was a kid. Like I have one of those 1999. You can see the banners back there, the 99 shooting shirt that they have. And because I'm a bigger guy now, I had to cut the sleeves off so it would still fit, but I still have that. And yeah, that's really cool. But I would have never guessed that. I remember Kevin Ollie calling Rodney Purvis the Ferrari, but just that nickname, just off the cuff wouldn't never get to me. My Kemba jersey store, I don't have it displayed anywhere, but I was running a charity. I was running a Wounded Warrior charity for a club I was working at when I was teaching tennis, and I wanted to get items. So I'm down in North Carolina. I was like, Kemba Walker is a huge Charlotte Hornets star at this time. And I reached out to their, public relations, and they were like, we really don't do, national charities. But I explained, I'm like, listen, I'm a huge UConn fan. I'm a season ticket holder. Can you help us out? And they eventually said yes. So I went with UConn alum and my good friend down here, Mike Casey. He always gets shouts out in this show. So we drove up to Charlotte together, picked up this jersey, and I was like, oh my God, it's a Kemba jersey. It's beautiful. It's signed by him. It's one of the Charlotte ones that have the pinstripes on it. So it's like an old school one.
Love it.
Was awesome. Awesome. So we got it framed, set up for the event. So get to the event, and I'm like, still like, man, I want this. Like, I can't bid on it because I'm running it. I'm like the MC of the show. And so I went to a client of mine and I said, if you bid on this jersey, I will give you 10 free tennis lessons. And she was just like, are you serious? I was like, absolutely. I don't remember how much she paid. It was probably too much, but she definitely got her money.
What do you think it was?
I think it was close to $300 because people were really jacking up the prices.
So here, the reason I say
charity,
is that's crazy. We donated a Cam Spencer jersey to the Bleeding Blue for good dinner. Guess how much somebody paid for the Cam jersey?
600?
3,500.
Wow. That's amazing.
Now it's a little bit different, right? It's part of the donation. It's the same jersey actually I got hanging behind me right there.
Yep.
But it was pretty cool to see it go. I was thinking, $600, right? It's $100 jersey plus the Cam signature in a frame, but $3,500.
That's wild, man. I don't think it was any more than $350.
You still have it?
I have it. It's in another room, and it's kind of one of my prized possessions. It's pretty awesome.
I mean, it would be one of mine too, but I think there's a spot right over your left earlobe that should be on the wall.
Yeah. If you see this is actually a staircase that goes up to my bonus room now / office. So I you know what I'm scared about putting it there is, I'll be completely transparent. If that was to fall, I don't want it to like, it's nothing's gonna happen to the jersey, but I don't want it to like the frame to crack and all this other stuff. It's almost like too nice. It's literally like a separate room.
That's fair enough. That's even cooler.
Yeah. It's like I mean, if I met Kemba twice at some of these season ticket events when I was bringing people to Charlotte games, and that was the coolest part. I mean, Jeremy Lamb, Kemba Walker, those guys, UConn guys. I would always be like, hey, they would always be like, oh, it's our UConn guy, like, you know what I mean? So there was a few of us there. I don't remember some of the names of folks. I don't even remember if people were alumni, but there was definitely there's always UConn people, that travel and want to be a part of.
Well, especially for him, right?
Yeah.
Jim Calhoun said
Huskies in the pros.
There was that video that came out by his agency, I think Excel Sports. Dude, it was so good. If anybody hasn't watched it yet on Twitter, find it. It's like 5 minutes long. And they interview all his past teammates and coaches and all this stuff. And it shows you the impact that this guy had. Jim Calhoun says he was probably the greatest player I ever coached and also the nicest. That is such an anomaly. Think about like some of the greatest. Now, I'm not saying Kemba is Jordan or Tiger Woods or whatever, but like these guys kind of seem like assholes. So oftentimes the greatest players are assholes because they're so focused. It's there's an ego that goes into what they do. Kemba was not like that. That smile was like, I mean, I'll never forget when because I went to college with Kemba. I graduated in 2009. I'm one of the few people that did not have a national championship. I did have a Final Four. Right. And when we went to Detroit and lost to Michigan State, Kemba was a freshman that year.
He was. Yep. We just talked about it. Yep.
So, but I went to school with Kemba, and like that guy was just such a nice guy that is someone like, to be honest with you, right, with the Feel Good Lab, we work with some athletes and we have some investors that are athletes. The second that he retired, the first thing I thought of is like, how do I get in contact with Kemba? I don't care if he gives me $1. And maybe this podcast is a way to get to him. Like I just want to get him a care package of product. And if he's interested to be part of what we're doing, because he's just somebody you want to be around and someone you want to be represented by.
Absolutely. I mean, I know Kemba lives in Charlotte still, so I would love to, just as I've reached out to Ricky Moore and we've become pretty good friends, be around him more, maybe potentially have him on the show. But even if he doesn't want to come on the show, I mean, I would go to him and do an in-person interview, not the StreamYard stuff, and talk through his time at UConn. And that's definitely a dream for me, because that dude's the GOAT, man. He was great. We talked about, before we had you on right now, the first segment was the impact that he made, but what game put him on the map? And it's the Elite Eight game against Missouri that got them to that Final Four. He had 23 points as a freshman. He was 7 of 9 from the floor. He was not a 3-point shooter then, but he wasn't a terribly good free throw shooter at the time, but he shot 9 of 10 from the free throws in that game. And he really carried that, senior laden, junior laden team that was a national title contender. And outside of the starters, he averaged the most minutes. You know, he was 25-minute a game kid, and
he was
that
so
game,
different of a player
yeah,
than he was by the time he was a junior.
And to me, that's what makes the story. I know I'm playing the July 4th angle right now, but that's what makes this a truly amazing American story, is the hard work that it took from his freshman to sophomore to junior year. I mean, averaged 8 points a game as a freshman, was a 6-man, to then now he's 23.5 points a game, national player of the year, national championship, 9th pick in the NBA draft.
At 5'11".
Yeah, I've been saying 6 foot, but probably shorter, right? You know, obviously, when I think I could find a picture of one of these events of me and him, and about the same height, and I would not call myself 6 foot. So, but
what's even crazier than that is, I think so. His transformation freshman to junior year, unbelievable. Oh, how much better he got, particularly in his shot. But it wasn't just shooting; it was his ability to take the hardest shots you can imagine all game long with the best, probably 2 defenders on him at all times. Like, it's not just being a shooter. It's actually like absolute killer. He probably made that same transformation times 2 or 3 when he got to the NBA, right? Like, there was a time in Charlotte where for the first month or 2 of the season, he was the MVP candidate of the league.
100%.
That's unbelievable for a guard that's that size, right? To be able to do that, it's crazy.
No, it's nuts. And I've had many games where I would go and, you know, it would end up being Kemba time. You know what I mean? Like where he would take over a game and just have incredible moments. I think it was the opening game of, God, I'm going to mess up the year, maybe 2014-15 in Charlotte. And it was like double overtime. And of course he had a buzzer beater, and it was just like, dude, this is what he does. This is who he is. He's clutch. And just your point about the toughest shots is if you go and just go click Kemba Walker highlights, but you have to listen to the announcers. They'll say stuff like, "Oh, that's a tough shot," and it goes in. Or man, that's some great defense on the other side. Swish. Like, he didn't care. Like, it didn't matter. He was getting a bucket, and he wasn't selfish though. Like, he still, like, these were shots that were in flow. Like, it wasn't like you know, Allen
it wasn't
Iverson.
just hucking. I mean, remember against Louisville in the Final Four run? It was the championship game. I want to say he had that wraparound pass to Jeremy Lamb that like sealed the game, right? Like, because he could have easily on that team just taken every single shot, and we would have been fine with it. But like some of those young guys, Shabazz, Jeremy Lamb, like they got so much better because he wasn't selfish. As much as he was shooting a lot, I mean, we needed him to. He still made those guys better.
Yeah, he's the first guy that, if I went back and looked at some highlights of the tournament run, not the Big East tournament, but when they started that big run. When we talked to David Borges yesterday, we talked about how much of a gauntlet that tournament run was. The teams, the players, where they played, you know, playing out in Anaheim against Arizona and San Diego State and basically playing road games. But I remember one like specific plays. It reminded me of, like, you know how the Golden State Warriors basically run, not necessarily a play, but Steph will kick a ball out and like get himself free in the corner.
Yep.
And he almost sets up one extra pass so he gets a wide open shot. They did that so many times during that stretch where he had corner threes. And I think that the guys like Jeremy Lamb, Shabazz, they learned so much from him based off of just the fact that he was willing to kind of bring them along on this journey, right? And not treat them like, yeah, you're just freshmen or whatever. I mean, that kid he's a legend for a reason. And I can't say enough good things about Kemba Walker.
No, I can't wait. I've met him quickly. It's funny. I met him at a Walmart in Newington after they won the championship. He was just in there randomly.
Yeah.
I talked to him for 2 seconds, but like, he probably is on my Mount Rushmore of athletes that I want to get to know. And there's this quote, and I kind of live by it now because I've met a handful of athletes. It's like, never meet your hero. You just get disappointed, right?
Sure.
The reason he's up there for me is I know that will not be the case with him, with just his personality. I'm not looking for much other than to just chat with him about some UConn days like you're talking about, right? But you can just tell he's a genuinely humble guy, and that, like, he loved basketball. Did you just see he got a job as a head of player development for Charlotte?
I did not. That's great. I think when did that happen? Recently? Like in the last.
Yesterday.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I know that he had when we talked to Sam Calhoun yesterday, he did say that he did know that Kemba had coaching aspirations. So that's great. Maybe if he starts a podcast, he can be a head coach in the NBA someday. No subtle digs to on a good day.
Hey, the proof is in the pudding, right? It's easy to laugh at now, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you coming on. Go enjoy your July 4th.
I'll be working, baby. That's why I'm in the office today. I got myself and one of my interns from UConn. We're in the office today because we have about 4,500 orders to get out from yesterday.
Well, good morning, America, man.
Yeah.
As seen on TV.
It's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have.
Well, all the success, you deserve it. The products are fantastic. I actually put some on my feet this morning for plantar fasciitis because I woke up this morning and felt like I couldn't even barely walk. So it's working as we speak. So I appreciate all that you do. And again, continued success. Appreciate you, Ryan. Have a great July 4th, even if it's in the office.
Thanks, Mark. Likewise.
Take care. Thank you to Ryan Gresh of the Feel Good Lab for coming on 4th of July to talk Kemba Walker. Wanted to let everyone know Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's now also available on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available in the free Fire TV channels app. Look, guys, happy 4th of July. Really appreciate you tuning in on your holiday. Hopefully you have lots of great hot dogs, hamburgers, anything special. I did want to mention a couple other folks who gave me some stories. Penfield on Twitter gave me some stories of him being at the 6 overtime game with Syracuse. He said the biggest thing he remembers about that game during the Kemba Walker era is the Devendorf shot that all of UConn fans were freaking out that he said his brother called and said that it's not going to count because his finger was still on it. I happened to say to him that I was at a bar in New Haven, likely getting drunk because it was in the 6th overtime or getting to that point. And even though we lost that game, that was an incredibly wild game. They cut beer sales with 10 minutes to go in the second half. So they were pretty thirsty by the end is what he said. So shout out to Penfield on his July 4th. But yeah, I mean, he even said there was a game versus Kentucky at Madison Square Garden the next year where he went toe to toe with John Wall. And even though we lost, you could tell he was going to be turning into a star. So not only the Missouri game, but other games that were really impactful in UConn fans' minds. Let me try to find one more here. I know DJ White, he's another fan and friend of the show. He said he was working for my town's public works department. We were done for the day around halftime of the Pitt UConn game. 8 of us were working. I live in upstate New York, Syracuse County, and the other 7 guys are Cuse fans, and they're really busting my balls. I told them we were going to win this game and that we were going to beat their ass the next night. When Coach Calhoun called the timeout to set up the winning play for Kemba, I looked at my coworkers and said, 15 is going to win this right now. Kemba made the shot, beat Syracuse the next night in Louisville in the finals. The rest is history, and my coworkers never heard the end of it. So, DJ, thank you for that story. Really appreciate it. It's an absolutely a cool story. Doesn't have to be crazy. It's something you'll never forget, and I'm sure we all remember where we were during those moments. So, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising, and as always, go Huskies.